Good evening, creeps, and welcome to the Calling All Creeps podcast. My name is Bryce.
And I'm Nathan.
And Nathan, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, tonight, Bryce, I have a very wide, whimsical grin on my face because we're talking about one of my all-time favorite things in the whole wide world of all things spooky, and that is Edward freaking Scissorhands, which has got to be one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah?
Most definitely. Probably in my all-time top 5.
If I know you, that doesn't surprise me one bit.
Yep, and I'm sure we will probably both have lots of things to say about it, but first of all, how have you been lately? I know you're kind of stupid busy these days with your job and fatherhood.
Oh, working hard, hardly working.
Hilarious.
No, just working hard, but doing pretty good. The weather overall is getting pretty warm. Went to a local Viking festival over the weekend, which is pretty fun.
Oh.
And yeah, the warm weather has been good. Taking the kiddo out to the park a lot. Yeah, and that's pretty much focusing on getting outside more. I got a little kayaking in today. It's nice. How's your week been?
Well, like I was saying before we started recording, this like working 6 days a week thing and just having one day off, it's really starting to kick my ass lately. It's finally starting to catch up to me, and I'm afraid, my dear Bryce, I'm finally starting to feel my age.
I feel you, man. I'm doing the 60 hours, 6 days a week also, and the one day is not doing it.
Oof, brutal. Yeah, and like my final day of the work week is Sunday, which is today, and it's when we always record the podcast. So Sunday night, 9 p.m., after working bright and early, we do the podcast right when I am just at my most exhausted. And then on Monday morning, I wake up and I edit the podcast.
I think that's 7 days a week then you're working.
That is an excellent point. I'm still waiting for my check.
Maybe someday.
Someday indeed. Well, Bryce, this will be, believe me, the first of many Tim Burton episodes because although I am a man of good standing in my community and free of suspicion, I nevertheless have a disturbing confession to make that will probably be horrifying to the average person, and that is that I like Tim Burton movies.
This is practically Tim Burton Jr. over here. There's 2 things I know about Nathan, is he likes Kurt Cobain and he likes Tim Burton.
Well, if there's 3 things you know about Nathan, it's that I love Tim Burton, I love Kurt Cobain, and I have a ginormous heart. So, yeah.
He does, ladies and gentlemen.
I love me some Tim Burton. Like, fully. Have all his movies been great? No. Fuck no.
Okay.
Not even gonna try and convince anybody out there that Alice in Wonderland is good or that his pointless Dumbo remake is worth a watch, because it's not. He did kind of fall off in quality. However, I didn't forget. I am still a true believer in the classics. That includes the Batman movies, that includes Sleepy Hollow, it even includes Sweeney Todd in my book. I really don't think he actually fell off until, like, Alice in Wonderland. Which, considering he started out in 1985, still leaves him with a good 20-plus years of solid shit. So, I think his career is pretty impressive. But yeah, man, what do you think about Tim Burton, Bryce?
Well, when I think of Tim Burton, my mind immediately goes to, Corpse Bride, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I'm immediately turned off. I don't like those at all. Not up my alley whatsoever. And so that's what I immediately think of, and I go, God, I hate Tim Burton. But then you remind me that he makes movies like Edward Scissorhands, and I go, oh, well, I like Edward Scissorhands. And so I go and I'm looking at his filmography now, and I'm like, oh, yeah. I love Batman and Batman Returns.
Oh, yeah?
I'm a huge fan of Mars Attacks. Super great movie. That 2001 remake of Planet of the Apes, I think is great. Maybe not the best Planet of the Apes for me, but I'm a huge Planet of the Apes fan, and I think it's very good. I do like Sweeney Todd. Again, I'm not a gore guy at all, but I do love the story of Sweeney Todd, and so it is something I've watched the movie a lot. I like it a lot. I've seen Big Fish and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I've seen Alice in Wonderland, and yeah, and I do really like some of them. So Huge props to Tim Burton. Again, I associate him with Nightmare Before Christmas, and I go, blah. Really good actors he chooses to work with. And he chooses to work with Danny Elfman all the time.
Yeah, we'll get to Danny Elfman later, but first of all, I gotta say, man, I'm shocked. I am so surprised to hear you say that you're not a fan of Nightmare Before Christmas. I would have thought that that movie was tailor-made for you. Just, you know, the ethos, the philosophy expressed in the movie is very you. And also, especially given the fact that you love Halloween, you love Christmas, and it is the best of both worlds. It's like the ultimate both at the same time movie.
Yeah, that's where it gets me, is I really, as much as sometimes I see Halloween-themed Christmas things, I don't really care to mix them. And again, I've seen some really nice black trees, and I've seen some really nice horror ornaments, and I do have a couple of spooky ornaments that I do put on my Christmas tree. But in general, I don't like to mix them. I find them very, very separate. It's been so long since I've seen Nightmare Before Christmas, but I've seen it a handful of times, and it's just not my thing. I think what Tim Burton pulls off is his style is, and I know this sounds odd with the name of the podcast, but I think his vibe is creepy.
I see.
Again, it's the stitches and the cuts on your face and the worms crawling out of your flesh, kind of talking doll, creepy kind of horror, which is my least favorite version. Super creepy stuff. Like, I don't know. That's not my favorite. I like the campy stuff and the gothic stuff.
Interesting. You're like one of those little kids that doesn't like it when their green beans touches their mashed potatoes on their plate. You like to keep your food groups separate. You want your Christmas and your Halloween to be separate from each other and living apart.
Yeah, no, I like my Christmas to be very classic.
I guess I can sort of see that.
And once I start adding anything else in, I turn away pretty quickly from it. So I'm like, what about this new Christmas thing? And I'm like, were they doing that in the 1950s? I don't think so. Stop.
Well, we'll see if I can succeed in expanding your mind a little bit on this podcast, although I might have better luck talking you into liking Kurt Cobain.
I like Nirvana.
Yo, what? Since when?
I don't like Nirvana as much as you. I've always liked Nirvana.
You know, I can't help but feel that there's a little bit of revisionist history going on here, Bryce, because I distinctly remember you talking mad shit about Nirvana and referring to them as generic radio rock.
Yeah, I was probably just making fun of them because you like them so much. You think Kurt Cobain is God, and I think Kurt Cobain's pretty good. There's some good songs.
Well, anyway, switching gears here. Tonight, we're not going to be talking about Nirvana or Nightmare Before Christmas. We're going to be talking about Old Eddie Scissorhands, a film that is very near and dear to my heart.
This is some huge house, isn't it? Hello? Why are you hiding back there? You don't have to hide from me. I'm as harmless as cherry pop. Those are your hands? Those are your hands. I think you should just come home with me.
So, my connection to this movie is like, I don't know, particularly romantic. And I mean romantic in the sense of like bittersweet and idealized and personally significant.
He means he makes out with the movie case.
I do what I like in the privacy of my own room. So I will say, I first encountered this movie when I was 14 years old. I remember I'd had an especially bad day at school, probably ran into some trouble with bullies, girl problems, whatever. I was a sad sack kid, man, all the way.
Still are.
Yes, very much, but even more so then. I mean, as sad sacky as I can be now, you can imagine what a freaking nightmare I was as a 14-year-old. Goddamn. And I spent a lot of time alone because I didn't really have any friends. Even the weirdest kids in the school, the real freakiest of the freaks, didn't really fuck with me. I was just on a whole nother level of weird. And man, I got my ass kicked a lot. I'd come home with scratches and bruises sometimes that I'd have to like hide from the adults because I didn't want to, you know, get fussed over and seem less manly or whatever. I felt this pressure to conceal my bullying. But man, I was sad as fuck. And I think it goes without saying, utterly hopeless with girls. But anyway.
Man, I want to go back and save little Nathan so bad.
Yeah, I definitely could have used a hug. But that's kind of what this movie did, really. But anyway, I came home from school one day and went up to my room, as I always did, and I shut the door and isolated myself away, mostly watching TV. We had basic cable back then, and I didn't really have internet access, like, readily available to me all the time, so I watched TV. And I was flipping through channels looking for something to watch, and Edward Scissorhands came on. And it was probably on like AMC or something. At first I didn't know what to make of it, and I thought it was kind of weird. And I remember seeing Johnny Depp in his outfit and kind of snickering at his goth makeup and the earnestness of the whole thing. But then I remember one scene in particular, the ice dance sequence where Winona Ryder is like dancing around in the ice flakes from Edward's sculpture, and that gorgeous orchestral score is blaring out the main theme. And during that scene, something just like washed over me, and I just felt totally swept away by it. And that perfect melody just seeped into my sad sack teenage soul, and I felt my chest fluttering with emotions that teenage boys definitely don't like to admit that they have. And I just felt this tremendous sense of like catharsis and comfort, like it was picking me up, dusting me off, and giving me a hug. I mean, just there was something about it was just so soothing, and it was like, man, I thought I was lonely. Here's this guy who literally can't touch things without tearing them in half. And yet, look at him. He's making ice sculptures. He's doing these awesome things. This movie kind of made it okay to be alone. In fact, it made it more than okay. It kind of made being alone seem, in the weirdest way possible, almost like aspirational. Because it's like, you know what? We can have our own world. We don't have to be pushovers, and we don't have to feel abandoned by the world. We can make ice sculptures. And like, how pure is that? How romantic is that? But like, that's my sap story. Bryce, tell me, what is your history with this film? Do you have one?
Wow. That was deep. That might be the best review this movie's ever gotten. That's really beautiful, man. Unfortunately, I don't have that deep of a connection. I probably watched it around the same time, and my only thought was, oh wow, a Tim Burton movie that doesn't suck. And
that's valid.
I've probably seen it 2 or 3 times. Yeah, dang, I wish I had something cool like that to say, but I don't. But that's
humanizes it, maybe.
Yeah, I like how you put it. It gives it a lot more depth than I had put to it. I mean, just to jump ahead a little bit, my thought at the end of the movie was like, what in the fuck was the point of this fucking movie? I was like, I enjoyed it, sure, but I'm just like, what point is it? But now you've really given it a different light that I've never looked at it in. I have already acquired a deeper appreciation for this movie.
Yeah, you know, I just think it has a lot of soul. I think it has probably the most depth of any Tim Burton movie. It really transcends the style. Actually, quite a bit of substance. Like, I love Beetlejuice, but I don't think it has a fraction of the substance that this does. I love Sleepy Hollow and Sweeney Todd. I don't think they have a fraction of the depth. I mean, this movie is about something. It's about being isolated and being a teenager and being in love for the first time and all that stuff, all that really messy, emotional stuff. I just think it tackles these things really beautifully.
Huh. No, that's really cool. That just puts a whole different spin on it. I always thought my only thought was that somehow it was like a really short 5, maybe 10-minute short film idea he had that he all of a sudden had the budget to make a whole movie about. I always thought it was just spread really thin, like if you just, again, took like a 5-minute good idea and made it an hour and 45 minutes, however long it is.
Interesting. That's actually really interesting that you say that. We'll have to go a little more in depth on that in our main discussion, but I actually have almost the exact opposite take on it. I think there's almost not a single inch of fat on this thing. I think it's a very tight movie. But allow me to explain a little bit about Tim Burton and the background of this movie.
Yeah.
Why it exists, how it got made. So Tim Burton was around 32 when he made Edward Scissorhands, and a weirdo he was, but at this point he had enjoyed some real success. I mean, Batman was a huge blockbuster hit. Beetlejuice also did pretty well. And he was in a position to call the shots a little more, maybe have a little more creative control. This was almost like his blank check movie. All right, you have these hits under your belt, fine, go do whatever the fuck you want, pretty much. And so for his next film, he didn't go the Spielberg route of chasing another big, larger-than-life subject that would snag more Oscars and set the box office on fire. He actually went smaller instead of bigger and more personal. Because one of the major criticisms that you would hear against Tim Burton a lot of the time was, hey, you know, Tim Burton makes these really pretty movies that look great, but there's not a whole lot of substance, not a whole lot of heart. And so Burton, which I kind of disagree, but Burton was like, well, maybe I can prove these people wrong. Maybe I can make my personal movie that has all of the big emotions in it and show that side of me. And if people like that, then great. If people don't like that, then I guess I can just make fucking Batman 2. But I could get into all of the behind-the-scenes stuff and the casting and all that, but quite frankly, the information is easily accessible online, and I just don't find it to be that interesting. I'd rather get into the work itself and the nuts and bolts of what makes this movie great, my relationship to it, and how it fits into the overall Calling All Creeps vision. So, without further ado, we can plunge balls deep into this movie.
Let's open that creaking door into Edward Scissorhands.
So the first thing we see is the 21st Century Fox logo, all decked out in snow. Right off the bat, the mood is chilly and atmospheric, and then we hear the score. I'm going to save the music talk for later on, but man, this whole soundtrack is just whimsical as fuck.
That's one.
And then we see these very picturesque shots of the inside of the house on the hill as the credits roll. How do we feel about opening credit scenes in general, Bryce? And this one in particular?
Yeah, I like them when they're done right. I think when it comes to a lot of art, I love something that gets you ready for it. I like a little, a short instrumental intro track on albums. And like this also, I love, if you can get something that sets it up. And I like this one in particular. And I love that the movie title is shaped like scissors. And you get this great spooky cobwebby house. And, Danny Elfman's playing music. And I think it's great because I think this movie is all about contrast. Most of the movie isn't really set in any sort of spooky environment. It's quite to the contrary. It's set in a very bright environment. And so I love that the rest of the movie doesn't include it as much. And so I love that it starts out in the house.
Yeah, it is a very old Hollywood kind of thing to have an opening credits sequence. Most of the time nowadays you just stick them at the end because, quite frankly, who cares? But I have to say, I think it's entirely possible to have an artful, entertaining opening credits sequence in a movie like this.
Yeah, there's some that just play music or they play something that doesn't have to do with the movie. There are some that I do think suck, and I'm like, all right, get to the movie. Done well, I think it's a great idea.
So we fade into a very whimsical-looking house on a hill in a wintry setting.
That's two.
Snowflakes falling in front of the camera. The visuals in this movie are not realistic. They are all just like fine-tuned for maximum whimsy. The camera pans back, and we find ourselves inside a child's bedroom. A little girl is getting tucked into her bed by her grandmother, who is very clearly just Winona Ryder in old lady makeup. It's not super convincing. She's doing her best with the old lady voice. It's like, all right, little darling, get in bed. It's time for bed now. And it's like... Yeah, all right, Grandma. This is like a very traditional Once Upon a Time fairy tale intro, setting the stage for the overall tone of this movie.
With makeup like that they, there's a lot of movies where they make someone look older. I always wonder if, when these people do get older, how accurate they are.
Yeah, I'm actually very curious about that. I guess we'll have to wait and see. So the first time I watched this scene, I wasn't quite sure yet just how seriously I was willing to take this.
Right.
The little girl asks Grandma why it's snowing. Grandma says it's a long story. Shut up and go to sleep, you little shit. The little girl insists on hearing the story, and Grandma's like, all right, I guess I'll have to start with scissors. You know, there are all kinds of scissors. There was even a guy who had hands for scissors once. The girl's like, hand scissors? No, scissor hands. And you're like, okay, are we for real with this? Is this like tongue-in-cheek? Is this like an ironic thing? Is this a comedy or something? And no, the more you watch this movie, the more you realize that it is incredibly earnest.
Ah, that's what I was going to say. I love that line. There's all kinds of scissors. And I was like, man, are there? I was trying to think of all the scissors I had, and I'm like, God damn, I think they're all the same.
There's really like no modern cynicism in this movie at all. It's very kind of old Hollywood. It's a fairy tale.
You know the mansion on top of the mountain?
It's haunted.
Well, a long time ago, an inventor lived in that mansion.
Grandma gestures to the house on the hill and says an inventor lived up there once. And then we get this beautiful aerial shot of the town as the camera flies towards the mansion on the hill. Again, very picture book, not realistic at all. Grandma explains that this inventor created a man and gave him insides and a heart. But basically, he was old as shit and died before he could give him proper hands. Which is just rotten fucking luck if you ask me. How's he supposed to jerk off?
I know, I never, now that you, obviously I know that's what it is, but now that you like say created man, is this a take on Frankenstein at all?
Well, that's the thing. It begs the question, what exactly is Edward? Is he a robot? Is he a Frankenstein man? Did Vincent Price go around robbing graves and stitching body parts together? It's really not clear.
I'd like to hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he seems like he works with machines, and he was able to like add hand attachments. So he seems, I don't know. Yeah, it is some sort of, you don't know, is he man or machine or cyborg?
Yeah, I guess looking at it logically, he probably is a robot. I just always kind of thought, I don't know, it's magic. He made a man. He's like a human. He's an immortal human that Vincent Price just created with his whimsical inventor magic.
I think that's 4.
Well, I'm glad somebody's keeping count. So the scene changes, and we find ourselves in the suburban community that the hill overlooks, where the normal people live. And it's like this pastel, primary-colored, mid-century meets the 1980s kitschy kind of aesthetic. Tim Burton grew up in Burbank, and this film is very much about his feelings on growing up, so we can basically infer that this is Burbank with a little extra fantasy pixie dust sprinkled on top of it. It's not, again, not a realistic suburban neighborhood. It's like a sort of impressionistic idea of suburbia as like seen through the eyes of a child.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite part of the movie. Is I really, really love this suburban pastel neighborhood. Fun fact, in a town I used to live in, tucked away somewhere, there is a little elderly folks community or something. But there is a little community just tucked away inside of all the other normal houses that looks just like this. They're all a bunch of smaller houses, but they are all perfectly pastel, picturesque, and like they have their own little like sub streets, and they're all have their own little cute names like Bluebird Lane and stuff like that. I remember I was just like walking around town, and I just somehow stumbled into this this little area, and that was my immediate thought. I was like, wow, I just walked into Edward Scissorhands here. It was weird, man.
Yeah, when I was a child, I used to fantasize about living in this type of place. I had this sort of fascination with this idea of suburbia, maybe because my parents were like poor and a little bit more lower class, so I had this idealized fascination with like affluent suburbia that I was probably getting from like cartoons and stuff. but I wouldn't mind living in a neighborhood like this.
Yeah, besides the fact that I can tell there's definitely an HOA here, and therefore I would not live there. But no, I do like it. It's very picturesque. Unfortunately, I doubt you'd really find a place like this, but it gives off a lot of that 1950s suburbia vibes that I oh so enjoy. I adore it.
Well, speaking of 1950s vibes, this is where we meet Peg, who seems to be doing some sort of door-to-door sales thing where she's peddling cosmetics. You know, she's dressed up in like this kind of cute pink blouse thing and hat it's almost like giving Jackie Kennedy. Very 1960s. And this is also where we meet the sketchy, chain-smoking cougar of the neighborhood, Joyce. More on her later. I think the actress who plays Joyce does a great job, really chews up the scenery here.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, that's a good point. Is just all of these characters are such a certain way, and they all nail it like perfectly. They pull off exactly the type of people you would picture live here. Man, do you ever see door-to-door salesmen or saleswomen anymore?
I can't really remember. Maybe when I was a little kid. I can't really remember the last time that I heard of such a thing. I'm sure it still exists in some form.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I had a job for maybe a week or less as a door-to-door vacuum salesman once. Terrible idea.
Sounds like a shitty job, honestly.
Yeah, they kind of trick you into it. But I did not like that.
Yeah, feels like a very old school kind of thing. But I guess that's just Peg's job or her supplemental income with whatever her husband is making. And this is also where we meet the crazy Christian lady who's just like this weirdo religious fanatic. I think her name is Esmeralda. She's really funny.
My notes also say crazy Christian lady.
Yeah, so basically, Peg sucks at peddling cosmetics. So she catches a glimpse of the house on the hill in her rearview mirror, and on a whim, she just decides to just go up there and see if anybody needs nail polish. And apparently, this blew my mind to learn about this, but apparently that house is real. They actually built that. It's not like a painting or anything. It is actually up there.
It's crazy the things they do for movies. It's crazy the things that I think are real, and then they're not. They're just sets, and I'm like, oh, wow, it felt like it was a real place.
So she drives up the steep hill and finds what is basically like a gothic ruin lifted straight out of like a Universal monster movie from the 1930s. It's like just a straight up Frankenstein's castle. It's totally stylized, unrealistic. She sees these beautifully carved hedge sculptures in the front yard, a bit of foreshadowing there. And she knocks on the door, and nobody answers. So she just pushes open the door and commits a home invasion.
Yeah, I never get that. They just walk in. I would never do that.
Yeah, it just seems like a really bad idea. I mean, first of all, you have to wonder if anybody in that town has ever thought of going up here before. I mean, surely there must at least be like some high school kids going up there to make out or something.
Yeah, I mean, when Halloween rolls around, there's no way there's not a let's go ring the doorbell or something. But I do love like they get a really good idea of sometimes when you're viewing the house, it seems really distant and really far off away on this hill. But then really it's just at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Hello? Avon calling.
Inside, she finds all this dusty old lab equipment and a big crooked staircase, and she climbs it. And at the top of the steps, in what appears to be the attic, she finds Eddie, crouched in the corner and hiding from her. And this is where we get our first good look at him. So, what do we think about his look? I mean, the outfit, the hair, the makeup, it is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. Again, I like it. I like his hair a lot. He's got a really fucked up looking face, scissors for hands, and then he's got this like skin tight leather outfit.
Yeah, it's like some kind of pseudo BDSM gear or something.
I know. I'm just like, what was Vincent Price doing, man?
Yeah, maybe it's good that he died.
Maybe. Every time you get a glimpse of him, he seems like, again, he's got the spooky house, but he seems like a really cheery guy. He doesn't seem like he was trying to create a horror or a terror, but he just kind of ends up being that way anyways. It works for the movie. And also, what is he doing living in there's no roof to this attic, like the roof's all caved in.
Oh, yeah, it's just a total ruin, basically.
Yeah, it's such a big house. Why is he staying in the part with no roof?
I think he's just hiding up there because he hears somebody come in. It's like, oh shit, because like at the end of the movie, we kind of see shots of him hanging around, going up the staircase and stuff.
Okay, I thought it looked like his bed was up there.
Oh, maybe so. I never noticed. I just always could never stop staring at the giant gaping hole in the ceiling. Like, what's he supposed to do when it rains or snows?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, why wouldn't you pick? There's got to be other rooms in this house.
Well, understandably, she's pretty freaked out at first. She tries to leave, but then he says, "Don't go." And then she realizes that his hands are blades and he's up here alone and has no one. And it's like her mom instinct kicks in, being this very kind, empathetic sort of person. And she decides to take him home, which is very sweet, I think. Takes one look at him and she's just like, yeah, you're coming with me. You're just like my son now or whatever. And just like that, she's driving him home, and he's looking out the car window and checking out suburbia for the first time. Some of the neighborhood ladies see this and start gossiping, and right away, the buzz around Eddie begins.
Yeah, very suburban, nosy neighbors. Everybody's calling everybody. Everybody's trying to get into everybody's business really fast and very desperately.
Yeah, so Peg brings Edward to her house and shows him around, and here's where we get our first glimpse of Kim. We see some pictures of her framed in the living room. And I have to say, 14-year-old me was pretty into Winona Ryder. Yeah. Peg gives him some normal people clothes, and I don't honestly know what she expects, but of course he can't dress himself. She puts him in a nice outfit. She tries to put some makeup on him to make him look a little less fucked up and sickly, but it just doesn't quite work. Eddie joins Peg, her husband, and their son, Kevin, for dinner. He's trying to eat with his hands, and I love how clueless the dad character is. He's just like a good-natured dope.
Yeah. He's probably my favorite character. You know, I was, when first watching it, you're expecting, she's just really nice. She wants to save him, She seems maybe a little ostracized from her neighbors to a degree. So she's just being really empathetic, like, hey, baby, I'm alone, you're alone. And my first thought is, okay, she's going to bring him home, and her husband and kids are going to be like, what the fuck? Why would you bring this crazy stranger into our house? But they're all incredibly chill. They're just like, yeah, welcome to it, bud. Here's a plate. Again, this kind of goes to the is he a machine question, because you can tell he's having nearly impossible time trying to eat. You got to wonder, how does he ever eat at all? Does he eat? My first thought I would have figured out a way to give him some utensil add-ons so he can slip on to the end of his scissors, like little forks and spoons.
Yeah, throughout this whole process, I just can't help but wonder, why doesn't somebody try to do something or suggest some kind of solution about his hands? Because there must be something somebody can do. But again, that's part of what's going on here is the theme of this movie is nobody quite understanding his needs.
Again, it doesn't seem like anybody at first is like, oh, your hands are fucked up, we should change them.
Yeah.
No one tries to change his hands throughout most of the movie. It kind of allows him to, hone his skills and feel it out. But I would have offered a rubber coating or something. I would have been like, let's get some rubber slip-ons for while you're sleeping at least or something, right?
Yeah, because it's not like he doesn't just have a pair of scissors on his hands. They're you can't really call them scissors. It's just a whole set of blades. This highly hazardous looking, almost like Freddy Krueger hands.
Yeah, like Freddy Krueger on crack.
So one day, the dad of the family is outside with Eddie and the kid cutting hedges in his backyard. And this is where Eddie finds his thing, which is using his hands to make art. He carves a giant dinosaur out of a hedge bush and carves the family.
Is it before this or after this we get our first Vincent Price flashback?
Yeah, the Vincent Price flashbacks happen sort of intermittently throughout this whole storyline. We only get like 2 or 3 scenes. Basically, he invents him, he sort of reads him etiquette, he tries teaching him some things, and then he dies of a heart attack. It's just, we don't get a ton of Vincent Price. He was in very poor health. This is actually his very last role.
Oh, really? That sucks. But I think right around this time, you get your first Vincent Price flashback. And again, big spooky house, but then he's got all these weird machines in there, and you're like, oh, maybe he's evil. But then at least the 2 machines you see are, one's a cookie maker, and the other one's like a salad cutter.
Yeah, well, of course, no Tim Burton movie would be complete without a wacky, whimsical factory montage where a bunch of unnecessarily complicated mechanisms are doing something. And Vincent Price is in this movie because Tim Burton was just a huge fan of him as a child. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that he did some kind of college film school projects where this short little animation bit about Vincent Price.
Oh, I would love to see that.
It's on YouTube.
I, too, am a huge Vincent Price fan. Okay, I'll check it out. That's awesome.
Yeah, maybe we could talk about that one of these days,
Yeah.
too. But this is like Tim Burton's dream casting. He got him in his very last role before he died, which is rather touching, I guess. But as the inventor character, we just see him working on his creation, creating this man, and then reading manners to him and things. It's cute. But anyway, back at the barbecue, right away, Joyce is kind of putting the moves on him, rather inappropriately. I feel like growing up, I probably knew a few Joyces in my time. So I feel ya, Eddie.
No comment.
Later that night, after everyone else has gone to sleep, a big black van full of teenagers pulls up to the family home, and Kim, played by Winona Ryder, gets out accompanied by her boyfriend, played by Anthony Michael Hall, who is the guy who played the nerd character from Breakfast Club. For the longest time, I did not put it together that he was the same guy that was in those Brat Pack movies. It blew my mind when I realized it. So, Kim is coming back from some kind of trip, like a camping trip, I guess. She goes up to her room, where apparently Edward has been given room and board without anyone telling her, which strikes me as just a terrible idea, like no phone call or anything.
They don't seem like they have cell phones at this time.
Oh, yeah, true.
So hard to call, but she's camping, and she also comes back early. They think they have some time before she gets back to introduce this character.
So, of course, she sees him, and she screams, and she flees the room. I don't know what anybody expected, although you do bring up a fair point. How could she have known?
No, yeah, she sneaks back into the house at night. Everyone else is asleep. Everyone else in the movie has reacted a lot more chill to this. I think she was the first person to react the way I kind of expected someone to react. That's pretty human feeling.
Yeah. Her casting in this movie is kind of interesting. She's sort of playing against type.
I know, it's so weird seeing her blonde.
Yeah, like in the last movie that she did with Tim Burton, she plays this very kind of stereotypical goth girl sort of person, the Lydia Dietz in Beetlejuice character. Here she's doing the preppy blonde thing,
yeah.
Although you get the sense that she's kind of just that on the surface. And then underneath the surface of that, there's like this other person that has more depth. I don't know if that was an intentional choice in their performance. It's interesting to think about. It's an interesting performance.
Another example of the contrast of, yeah, he usually does play a darker sort of character and comes in all bubbly and popular in this movie, and so it's a little shocking at first. You're like, okay, it's really weird.
Yeah, well, I feel like it would have been a little too cheesy and on the nose if she was presented as this like punk rocker girl character with like a mohawk.
Yeah, it wouldn't fit with the movie at all.
You and me, Eddie, against the world. I feel like that would be too much. It needs to be more Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's very Beauty and the Beast.
So Kim doesn't know what to make of him at first. She's kind of weirded out and disgusted by him, as probably any normal teenage girl would be. I think that, like, Winona Ryder at this point is, like, 20? 19 or 20? I think she's like, the character is supposed to be like high school age still, I guess. But she plays the disgust very realistically. It's like palpable disgust at him.
She get you nervous? You've been cloistered away up in that castle too long. You don't know anything about the wonderful world of teenage girls. They're all crazy.
Yeah, and then we get a scene where Kevin, the little boy of the family, takes Edward to school with him for show and tell.
Oh, yeah, this is my favorite quote of the movie. One chop to a guy's neck and it's all over.
Yeah, that does seem like some shit you would say. Right away, Eddie is being paraded around as this sort of novelty, this circus freak. And also, pretty much right from the beginning, there is this one-sided romantic tension with him and Kim. She's like the glamorous blonde, and Eddie, you know, despite being played by Johnny Depp and despite being very handsome in a sense, his makeup and his outfit and like his whole makeup job, contrasted with everyone else around him, does make him look very imposing and weird. He's clearly just off-putting to her. Zero social skills.
Oh yeah, he barely talks or anything, but you could tell he's immediately infatuated with Kim. Very Beauty and the Beast.
But despite this, he's pretty popular in the neighborhood, especially with the women folk. He starts cutting people's hair and generally just being an object of lust for Joyce in particular.
Man, yeah, it's really weird, all the sexual tension towards him. I don't understand why all these women seem to be incredibly attracted to this cut-up monster with scissors for hands. I would say maybe the most nonsensical part of the movie.
I don't know, man. I mean, at the end of the day, he is Johnny Depp.
Oh, Eddie, is there anything you can't do? You take my very breath away, I swear. Look at this. Have you ever cut a woman's hair? Would you cut mine?
He starts, again, cutting all the hedges in the neighborhood. He starts cutting dogs' hair. And then, yeah, moves on to cutting people's hair, which as soon as he started doing that, I was like, well, I would not let this man's hands anywhere near my hair. So I got my ear cut during a haircut once, and that was enough for me. Every time I get a haircut, I'm like, don't cut my ear, please.
Oh, that sucks.
And so just watching him go in, I was like, ah. Some of them I think look really nice, the haircuts. Some of them are a little goofy, a little Whoville.
Yeah, but like on the point of why are they all so into him? I mean, first of all, he's objectively a very handsome guy, but also all of these women are super bored. They never see new people. And then all of a sudden, here's this new guy. There's never a new person, and it's a man, and it's a young man. It doesn't strike me as far-fetched.
At the beginning of the movie, she's, flirting with the mechanic, calling him over for nothing just to flirt with him. Plus, he's really talented and, sort of on his way. He's on his way up with talents and fame. And that's why after these haircuts get really popular, they get him into his idea of opening his own salon. But yeah, that's where she tries to seduce him and fails and very bitterly turns the narrative around on him.
Yeah, well then we'll get to that later on, but that is pretty shocking, especially nowadays.
Yeah, and then he gets, I don't know how, I guess local TV or something back in the day, but he gets onto a talk show. I think there is one lady who suggests like seeing a doctor and getting his hands changed.
But then you wouldn't be special. Then nobody would care. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then she says, he's always going to be special, regardless, because that's who he is. And again, it just kind of goes to show that while it turns out that people are pretty easy to turn against him, all these people are like really into him and really accepting of his differences. And everyone's really excited for him and thinks he's cool and talented.
I mean, I don't know. I think that's pretty superficial, though. On the surface, they're really nice to him. But directly below the surface of that, it does not take much to get people to turn on him. I think that people's fascination with Edward is just entirely superficial for most of them.
I agree. Again, that's why the town seems so nice on the outside, but you get more of that contrast too, where they're all not that way on the inside. And, at the slightest thing, they can turn on you. Even though they know you very well and have been talking you up and have been your friend, they're very quick to turn against you, which happens when...
We want your hands high in the air where we can see them.
Yeah, so Eddie's luck takes a turn for the worse when he gets roped into this ridiculous burglary scheme by Kim and her boyfriend, because Kim's boyfriend basically hatches this plan to use him to try and steal some of his dad's electronics so they can pawn them off and basically buy a van. It's kind of fucked up, really. I mean, I also get the sense that Jim, the boyfriend, is doing this partly to get back at Eddie for being into Kim because he can tell that he has this attraction. The plan goes south, of course, and Eddie becomes the fall guy.
I'm not sure if this is a get back part yet or if he's really a fall guy as much as it goes wrong. And I think there's an alarm and it shuts and locks the door. And of course, like, Kim is like, we should go back for him. And I appreciate that sentiment of, that's our friend. He was helping us. We should go back and save him. But I don't think there was any way to save him. The door is locked. The windows are, like metal shutters. And so, unfortunately, it probably was just the smartest idea to go. And so they do just arrest him. I think really goes to show more good about Edward. He's so new to people and he's so new to customs and how things work. And this guy doesn't rat on them. This is where it bugs me the most is what's her boyfriend's name?
Jim.
Yeah. This is where it really gets me because he tricks Edward into helping him out and Edward gets caught. Edward doesn't rat on them. And you think Jim would come to be his best buddy like, hey, man, that was really cool. But unfortunately, this is the time where the dude completely starts to turn against Edward. And that's what gets me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Jim intentionally sets him up to get caught. I think he just doesn't really give a shit what happens to him and sees him as a freak and has this little bit of jealousy going on too, this little bit of hostility.
Oh yeah, from the beginning, he doesn't like Edward at all. But again, I thought if I had a friend that took a fall for me, in my head, I would go, okay, maybe I had some bad ideas about that guy. But what a true friend.
Yeah, and it's also pretty messed up how Kim just allows all of this to happen. I mean, if you look at her, I have mixed feelings about her character in general, because if you look at her general behavior, it is quite bad. She does act very selfishly.
Well, she immediately tries to go back and save him.
I would say just allowing the plan to go through in the first place is like a real problem. But this is also the moment where she kind of flips on Eddie and starts to see his human side and starts to be interested in his emotions and things and see him as more of a person and less of just this novelty or a circus freak. There's this really sweet scene where she tries to comfort him after his whole ordeal in court, and she's like, you must have felt awful when they told you whose house it was. And Eddie says, I knew it was Jim's house. And she's like, oh yeah, well then why did you do it? And he responds, because you asked me to. Real moving stuff, really. Danny Elfman hits us with just the right emotional sting in the soundtrack. He always knows just what to do. It's really heartbreaking. And then after this, Eddie sees Kim with her boyfriend, and he goes nuts and scratches up the wallpaper. It's metal as fuck.
Such a chill guy throughout most of this. But, everybody's got their breaking point, and it sucks, he kind of takes it out in this particular way.
He's got that incel rage.
Yeah, well, yeah, and everyone in this house has been super nice to him, and it sucks that he, immediately goes about destroying their house.
Yeah, well, that's what you do when you're an angsty teenager, because he's experiencing being an angsty teenager for the first time and going on a big rampage.
Right.
Thing is, though, Kim has it out with her boyfriend. She starts going off at him, giving him that cold shoulder. Eddie doesn't realize how in he is. I also love how the dad is trying to lecture him about morality at dinner. Very funny stuff. He presents Eddie with this dumb hypothetical, like, what do you do if you find a suitcase full of money in the street? Do you give it to your loved ones? Do you keep it? Do you take it to the police? Edward says to give it to his loved ones, and the dad says, nope, that's incorrect. But then you see, Kim is just, super into it.
Yeah, she says, that's what I'd do. I think it's very sweet and very nice of him and maybe the right choice. And they come across that thing where they go, what sort of education to this guy? What sort of anything does he know? And they genuinely care enough about him to say, we wouldn't like you to get into trouble again.
And so Christmas time rolls around. Surprise, it's a Christmas movie as well.
Oh, man, that was my next question is my wife watched it for the first time when I did this rewatch. And that was one of her questions. She goes, is this a Christmas movie? And I'm like, I have to ask Nathan, but there you go answering it. This might be a Christmas movie.
Yeah, to me, every Tim Burton movie feels like it's sort of a Christmas movie and Halloween movie at the same time to varying degrees. You kind of got both vibes in there.
Yeah, I love their Christmas tree. fantastic. I also love, I've never seen this before. I don't know if this is something people did or do, but the dad's out on the roof putting fake snow on top of the roof.
Yeah, it's a very old school thing, but it is a thing.
I've never seen that. I love that so much, though.
Okay, so here's the scene, the ice dance. This scene is kind of the centerpiece of the whole movie, really, and it's kind of when Eddie sort of seals the deal with Kim, even though they never really have the chance to develop the relationship further. But she goes outside and finds him carving a beautiful ice sculpture in the shape of an angel, and she dances around in the snowflakes that he's carving. It's corny, it's schmaltzy, it's self-consciously sentimental, but man does it work. And to be honest, it's really the music that does it for me. More than anything else in this scene, it's the Danny Elfman score, laying it down and making all this work.
Yeah, it's very pretty.
The visuals are beautiful, of course, but the scene teeters so close to the edge of being too much, too sappy, that the music really has to knock it out of the park. The scene could have been a real mess in the hands of a lesser composer and a lesser director. If it had been like this cheesy romantic pop song or something playing during this, oof, that would have sucked ass.
Where did he get this ice, man? If it's in California or Florida or somewhere hot, where does he get this like 10, 15 foot tall block of ice to carve this out of? I have no idea.
We don't ask questions about where the ice is from.
But again, yeah, it doesn't snow here. And so, yeah, she's really feeling it coming out, seeing this beautiful piece of art he's making, which I assume he's basing off of her.
So Jim, the boyfriend, interrupts their little moment, and Eddie reacts and accidentally slashes Kim's hand. And this is the moment that starts the ball rolling for Eddie's undoing. Jim freaks out on him, gets up in his face. Kim tries to defend him. Edward takes off. He's not having this anymore. He runs off into the night. And basically, the whole neighborhood goes into a frenzy. And we enter the kind of like Frankenstein third act portion of the movie where like all of the villagers grab their pitchforks and start going after him.
Yeah. I also I love the dad here. He's up on the roof putting that fake snow up, and he sees, completely misses this huge fight happening.
Oh, hey, what you doing there, Eddie?
Yeah, where are you going? Yeah, he's like, hey, where are you going? And yeah, somehow he misses this huge fight happening right under his feet. Yeah, and Edward starts to walk, I assume, towards his house, maybe.
I think he's just kind of taken off. He's just, again, he's discovering teen angst for the first time, so he's just doing that teenage thing of like, I'm just gonna run away, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think he has a destination in mind, per se.
I think he's a pretty kind-hearted guy, and he doesn't want to... Obviously, you could just rip this guy to shreds. Honestly, the balls on this guy to even think of attacking Eddie blows my mind.
Yeah, that's gonna come back to bite him later. Or should I say, stab him in the chest later.
But this is where Kim breaks up with her boyfriend, though. And she's like, get lost. I don't love you anymore. And he's all pissed off, and he runs off to drink beer in his van with his buddy.
Yeah, he retreats back to his obscene sex van and gets drunk with his friend. And he gets the idea in his head that he's gonna go back and try and mend the situation, get her back. She's gone, man. You gotta know when to cut that shit loose.
Yeah, and so, again, her parents, they go out searching for him. Again, they're really concerned about him. The little brother... He's over at a friend's house. The parents go out and search for him, and they tell her to stay there in case anyone comes by. And who comes by? But Edward Scissorhands comes right back to the house.
Eventually, Edward comes back to the house, and he gets reunited with Kim, and they have this little heart-to-heart. And this is where she kind of lays it down. She's like, hold me and shit. And he's like, nah, I got fucking scissors for hands. I can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, he just accidentally cut her, and he's really afraid to try to embrace her again.
Yeah, so she kind of takes his hands and like helps him to embrace her.
I think they kiss in this scene.
And no, they don't kiss until the very end, but they kind of embrace, which in this universe that's like second base.
Right. Oh, right. This is the scene, but they are hugging.
It teeters very close to chick flick territory, but it holds back just enough to keep it grounded. It stays away from like dime store romance cheese Like, there's no scene in this movie where there's like soft focus, slow motion shots of them humping in a bed or something. It's more fairy tale.
Yeah, and so you see the boyfriend getting drunk in the car and the kids walking home. They're embracing. Edward and Kim are embracing in the house. Looking out the window, he sees her brother walking home, and he sees her ex-boyfriend now and his friend. They starts driving, so you see this van swerving. And again, another instance where you see what a good person Edward is. He walks outside and he runs and he tackles her brother to save him from being hit by this drunkenly swerving van. But he ends up cutting his face a little bit. And this is where everybody freaks out.
Yeah. So through a series of convoluted events, Eddie escapes up to the old house on the hill again, pursued by the whole damn town, and Winona Ryder. Who hasn't been pursued up a hill by Winona Ryder?
And a cop.
Yes, there's a cop who is like one of the few sympathetic people.
Yeah, and it's a pretty interesting choice that they show the cop this way. The cop drives up and he just walks into the yard, fires his gun off, and then he comes back and they're like, "Oh, did you kill him? Did you get him?" And the cop's just like, "It's over." And the cop drives off, hoping that's the end of it.
Eddie eventually ends up back at the house again, and this is where Jim and Eddie have their final confrontation. Kim and Eddie team up and basically kill this motherfucker. Like, holy shit, he actually dies. Rather violently. I always forget just how violent it gets here. But, Jim pursues Edward and Kim up the hill, discovers them together, and he tries to intervene and beat up on Ed, and he quite predictably gets fucking stabbed in the chest. And that's the end of him.
Stay away from her!
After giving Edward a pretty good beating, again, he had to push Edward pretty far before it gets to that point.
Yeah, Eddie is not a violent person.
Edward decides he's had enough of that shit.
Yeah, and nothing gets Winona Ryder hot and bothered like boyfriend murder. So this is where she kisses him and professes her fucking love and shit. And talk about getting cucked. Dude, it just like gets stabbed in the chest, and then his girlfriend is just immediately making out with Edward while he's bleeding from the chest. Yeah. But yeah.
And of course, this is all everyone below sees. They find her ex-boyfriend's body dead among the broken glass in the garden.
Yeah, and Kim has to come outside and convince them that Edward, died or something.
Yeah, they said the roof caved in on him.
Yeah.
But yeah, they really kind of accepted that pretty easily.
Yeah, they just accept it. They're just like, okay, fine.
Everyone's like, oh, well, no more drama here, and they all leave.
Yeah, there's this bleeding carcass of a teenage boy on the ground, and I guess we're all just gonna go home. I mean, I'm talking no police involvement. Bye.
Yeah, there's a dead body in the yard, there's a dead body in the attic. Call it a night.
Yeah, probably the most fantastical thing that happens in the whole movie. So that's kind of that. Finally, we find ourselves back at the beginning with Grandma, the little girl in the bed, and the conclusion. Grandma's like, yeah, they never saw his ass again. The little girl asks how she knows, and Grandma takes her glasses off, and she's like, because I was there. Whoa, boom. And it's like, bitch, we all knew you were Winona Ryder, by the way. You're not an old lady. You are very clearly a 20-year-old woman in heavy prosthetics.
Dun, dun, dun.
But, the little girl asks her why she can't go up and see Edward, which is honestly a pretty good question.
Literally.
Yeah, Grandma says, nah, dude, I'm like an old lady and shit. I want him to remember me as a hot blonde chick.
I don't know, but there's a lot of time in that 50, 60 years that have gone by.
That's true. You can't even, no hanky-panky on the weekends, no nothing. You're not even going to go see him. Okay, shit.
Yeah, no, nothing at all. I guess, I don't know if she just assumes that he's where he belongs. They kind of toy with that idea earlier, he might have been better off left alone.
I get that's so sad.
You never find out. We never see him again.
Yeah, he's just up there all alone, basically immortal, which makes it even worse.
Yeah, assumably immortal, but again, in this sunny climate, you can see that it is snowing outside.
Yeah, because he still carves the ice sculptures, and that's what makes it snow. Again, not a subtle, it's fairy tale logic. It is very moving stuff. I will not lie.
Again, how the hell does he get a bunch of big ice blocks up to that house?
Doesn't matter. He goes to fucking Walmart. He's got a Sam's Club membership. And yeah, and oh my fucking Lord, that score at the end as the credits roll. I mean, come on, man. That shit is beautiful. It's a return of the ice dance theme, the love theme, as like the final go around of that melodic motif. And it is very beautiful. And that is what takes us out. And so
yeah, I think you get a little flashback of the dance, and yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. So let me go take a piss real quick, and then we'll talk about our ratings and our thoughts on the movie.
10-4.
Okay, so I will turn this around to you. Bryce, what would you rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 10 disembodied human skulls?
I want to be nicer, but I'll probably give it a 4.5 out of 10 disembodied human skulls.
Oh, damn. All right. So below average, not a super fan.
No, I like it. I don't think it's great. I don't know. This might even be the last time I ever watch it. I don't personally think it's really great. The part I like most about it is just how that neighborhood looks.
Okay, yeah, you definitely don't have the visceral emotional connection to it that I do. You don't have the love affair with it that I do.
No, yeah. So what are you giving it a rating as?
I'm going to start sounding like you, but, I think this movie's pretty much perfect, man. I would have to say this might end up being the only time that I ever give something a 10 out of 10 disembodied human skulls.
Wow, look at you.
I don't think...
Throwing them out there.
I don't think there's a single wasted second in this thing. I think it's all just about perfect.
Really? Okay.
I love a lot of Tim Burton's movies, but this is the only one that really kind of transcends genre, transcends style, and is just like a great movie about being a loner and being a teenager and being an outsider and having these kinds of emotions. If you can relate to any of that, any part of that, this movie has some very deep things to say about being that kind of person, being someone who feels lonely and outcast.
Yeah, again, I've never thought of it that way until you pointed it out. My thought was Tim Burton woke up from a dream one time and he was like a guy with fucking scissors for hands. Yeah, I got a movie idea. Like, what's it about? It's just a guy with scissor hands. What did he do? He cut shit. And they're like, oh, right. And he's like, and it's set in the 50s. And you're like, oh, okay. And they're like, yeah, imagine a guy with scissors for hands walks into your suburban neighborhood. And they're like, what does he do? Not much. And then how does it end? Yeah, he leaves.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have a more cynical outlook on it. Like, which, I understand. Like,
no, again, you've opened it up to a lot more thought. Edward Scissorhands, I think, is kind of cool as an idea. That dad's really funny. It's kind of it for me.
Okay, well, I can respect it, man. I can respect it. Hopefully, I'm glad I was able to maybe shine a little bit of a light on a dimension of this movie that maybe you hadn't thought about too much before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and to be honest, 50% of what makes this movie so great to me is the Danny Elfman score. That's huge here.
Yes, I'm glad we're getting to it. As much as I don't care about Tim Burton, Danny Elfman is awesome. I love what he does.
Yeah, so Danny Elfman is a hero of mine, obviously, and part of what's so fascinating to me about Elfman is that he started out as a rock star. He was a rock star before he was ever a film composer.
Yeah, Oingo Boingo, right?
Yeah, he was in Oingo Boingo, which was a very successful band. They had music videos on MTV and shit. They were on Beavis and Butthead. They were a big thing.
Yeah, I like a few Oingo Boingo songs. I also I say Oingo Boingo probably 10 times daily.
It's a fun name, yeah. Fun band.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm a much bigger fan of his movie soundtracks than I am of Oingo Boingo, but I like Oingo Boingo. I think they're fine.
But I agree with you, yeah. That's something I've gotten into in the past few years is film scores. I've never really cared or thought about them very much. But the last few years I've really been paying attention to and listening to film scores, and Danny Elfman is just always obviously just stands out. Very good.
Yeah, well, like the thing with Elfman is he basically just does one thing very well. But man, does he do the shit out of that one thing.
Yeah.
Every time he hits me with that choir and that twinkling celeste and the bells and stuff, every time I hear it, it's like, oh, it's this again. Love it. Love it more every time I hear it. I really dig his compositional style.
Yes, that's sometimes I'll listen to a movie score and I'll go, this is great. And I go, I wonder what else they've done. And then I don't really care for what else they've done. But this, again, he's pretty consistent. Even if I don't care for the movie, I usually really like all of his scores, and it is all very similar. And again, I think that's great. Does a thing and he does it really well.
Yeah. So he started out with Tim Burton as a film composer. He did his first film in 1985 with Pee-wee's Big Adventure, his first Burton collaboration, and Burton's first film as well. So when they started out, they were two guys who had never done a movie before, and so which probably has a lot to do with why they formed such a strong and consistent bond over the years. But this film, Edward Scissorhands, Danny Elfman has described it as his most personal film score and his favorite. And I'm pretty sure Burton also has said that too. And it makes total sense. I mean, clearly he poured his heart and soul into this score. It is just beautiful. And for a guy who comes across as so kind of unsentimental in his interviews, his music is just bursting with powerful emotions. He really does not shy away from the big, tear-jerky moments. And like the pop songwriter that he is, he has a particular knack for writing these beautifully memorable melodic hooks that stick with you for years. He's a fan of the old Hollywood composers like Bernard Herrmann. He kind of makes use of the leitmotif system, which is essentially where you write a series of recurring melodic motifs. Nobody really writes that way anymore. Danny Elfman still does.
Nerd.
Yeah, totally. Oh, you should, if you think I'm that way, you should have a conversation with my dad about this stuff. But,
Oh, I have.
Yeah. So, for this movie, there are two main themes. There's the main titles theme, which is primarily used for Eddie himself, and then there's the ice dance theme, or the love theme, which focuses more on the Winona Ryder character and the romantic aspect. And Elfman originally intended for there to be only one main theme for the whole movie, but he wrote both of these pieces, and he ran them by Tim Burton, basically being like, man, I have these two themes, I can't choose which one I like better, what do you think? And Tim Burton listened to both of them and was basically like, yeah, I don't know, man, just use both of them. Fucking, I don't know. Use both of them. And so he did. They're both in here. They're both great. The piece of music that plays during that ice dance scene is the musical centerpiece of the film. And, this is the piece of music that really captivated me as a teenager. And truth be told, it's probably my favorite piece of film score ever.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, dude. So that kind of wraps it all up in a nice, neat little bow for me.
Yeah, I know you said earlier that it transcends genres. I was going to ask, what, maybe you don't have an answer, but what you thought this movie is. Is it a horror movie? Is it a romance movie? Is it a Christmas movie?
If you really wanted to be shallow about it, you could describe it as a teen romance. I really don't consider it to be that. It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy. It's a fairy tale. I don't know. Tim Burton is his own genre. It's not really... Very few of his movies are like actual horror movies. This is supposed to be scary. It's just, he's kind of just doing his own whimsical Tim Burton thing. So I would say it's a fantasy.
A dark fantasy.
A dark fantasy. Yeah, sure. And his movies have these aesthetic charms. I think this transcends that, and it's visual aesthetics aside, it's just a great movie about being a misfit. Bottom line, that's kind of what I mean by that.
Yeah, maybe not technically a horror movie or not even very much a Halloween movie, it still is, a darkness to it.
It's still spooky.
But it also, again, hearkening back to the fact that it is full of contrast and kind of does that Beauty and the Beast thing where definitely some good dark stuff in there, which is why we are talking about it here on the Calling All Creeps podcast.
It's still very much doing that Tim Burton thing of indulging in old school gothic tropes. It's not a horror movie, but not everything we talk about on this podcast is just a straight up horror thing.
Maybe horror is the wrong word, but it is still spooky. That's where we'll put Edward Scissorhands. Is it fits itself into a dark spookiness to it.
You're damn right about that, Brycey boy. And if any of you listeners out there have somehow listened to this whole thing and you haven't watched Edward Scissorhands, or maybe you haven't thought about it too much or haven't given it too much of a chance, you should go fucking find it and watch it. Plunge balls deep into Edward Scissorhands. Reevaluate it. Let it into your heart. You cannot come to this movie with any kind of cynicism. You have to let it do what it does. You have to have an open mind and an open heart. Is it subtle? No. Does it make sense? No. Does it teeter dangerously close to chick flick territory at times? Yeah. Is it a little bit cheesy that he looks like he's trying out for the Cure? Sure. Fine. But I fucking like it. What can I say? I just like it. I accept this movie for what it is. I probably saw it at the right age, at the right circumstances to really fully get it and to have the connection to it that I do. It's one of the good ones, man.
What do you think? There was probably 30-something years between Beetlejuice and Beetlejuice 2?
Beetlejuice 1 was 89, I'm pretty sure. So, 30...
Okay, so... 30-something
35 years, yeah. Something like that.
Maybe there's hope out there for a sequel. Edward Scissorhands 2, Son of Scissorhands, Spoon Hands.
Fuck no. No, that would be the last straw for me. I would have to track Tim Burton down.
There's the possibility for it there, man. You got a Son of Frankenstein and stuff. We could use a Son of Scissorhands.
But then who's the mom? Who's the mother? I can't abide by...
Edward Scissorhands would have to create him, take in his father's footsteps of creating a man.
Oh, you're right. But Eddie's immortal, though, so why can't he just be his own son?
He gets lonely? I don't know.
Side note, there was apparently, I haven't seen it, but there is apparently a porno Edward Scissorhands called Edward Penis Hands. It's a real thing. It exists.
At what point did you realize I've arrived, I am successful, I've made my mark?
When they make porno movies based on your films.
Like what? Which films?
Edward Penis Hands. That was what...
Okay. Well, on that note, you got any more thoughts on Edward Scissorhands, Nathan?
I don't think so. I think I think I've covered everything that I had to say on the subject.
All right. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. If you got any thoughts, let us know. And until next week, bad dreams.
Bye. Thanks for listening. Downer. I need a downer, or I will flounder and die of fright. Remember the glowing embers within your lantern, the sacred night. I still remember waiting for the fall, the painted faces in the street, to be the finest dressed of them all. Was such a noble thing to be. This eve, downer, I need a downer, or I will flounder all through the night. I want you to stay with me, go trick or treating all through the night.